We have a special guest today. Today we are joined by, he is a writer and a reporter for New York Upstate and Syracuse.com, as well as a co-host of Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. This is Ryan Talbot. How are you today, Ryan?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
What a huge week for Bills football. Between the start of OTAs, the extension of Ed Oliver, late free agency signings in Leonard Floyd and Cam Dantzler, groundbreaking of the new stadium, and just announced this morning Josh Allen on the cover of Madden 24. There's so much to get into. Ryan, we don't want to keep you here all night, so let's just get right into it. Before we talk Bills, let's talk about you and how you got to where you are today. You being a Western New York upstate guy and a St. Bonaventure alum, I assume you grew up a Bills fan.
Yeah, that is a correct assumption.
And then I guess at what point did you realize that not only were you a fan of the Bills and the game, but you wanted to take it to the next level and build a career out of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first got onto Twitter, it was something like 2009, somewhere in that range, and I just happened to see someone post that they were looking for a Buffalo Bills writer for their website. It was just a little blog. And I said, I've watched this team my entire life. I can write pretty well. I wouldn't mind doing something like that. So I submitted a mock draft. It was around draft season at that time, and he got back to me. And the site was called QueenCitySports.net. And actually, it's kind of interesting. Mike Schroe is the owner of that site, but myself, Joe Marino, and quite a few others that have kind of broken into the media kind of started out there. And it was a really cool starting point. But like you said, at that point, I was still kind of dipping my toe in the media part of it and more so a fan at that point. So I kind of went around to some different sites, billsmafia.com and a few other blogs like that. And then finally, scout.com approached me. And growing up, scout.com, that was a big time site, a big time deal. And they were looking for a Bills beat reporter. And I ended up getting the job. So at that point, once you start covering the games, going to the games, doing different media things, it changes. And it's something where a lot of fans when we bring this up on the podcast, they get genuinely upset, like, you guys aren't Bills fans. It's like, well, I was a diehard Bills fan for a good portion of my life, but then you're in the locker room with these guys, you're interviewing them after games, you kind of get to go behind the curtain, so to speak, and it's a completely different ball game from that aspect. And you don't want to be biased in your reporting, so it's very important to kind of know when it's time to take that hat off in terms of being a fan. And I always say the same thing though. If the Bills ever win it all, if they ever win a Super Bowl, I'll be thrilled because my parents, my brother, my friends, other extended family, they're all Bills fans. So I know how exciting that would be for them. So I would be just as happy if they were able to win the Super Bowl one of these years, even though I'm covering them from a media perspective.
That's really good insight too, because me and Mike talk about this on the show too, where we're fans of the game first. We're Bills fans through and through.
Yeah.
But when we're talking on the show, we have to have that level and non-bias,
Professionalism.
exactly, that level of professionalism. But yeah, that's really good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's what having that professionalism is. It's like you don't want to be a fan of the game, and then you go and have this media job, and then you go and see Josh Allen right in the locker room, and you're like, oh my God, Josh Allen! You don't want to fanboy over him. So you got to keep that professional tone. Do you have any advice for aspiring writers or people that want to make a career out of writing about or talking about football? Me personally, I went to school at the University of Buffalo for communications and journalism. So I graduated last year, so I've been looking to get into that field. Hence why this podcast was started up and created. But do you have any advice for any aspiring writers?
Yeah, it's generic, but find something that you're passionate about. Find something that you will never get bored writing about. And maybe because I grew up a Bills fan, this is something that I just can't get bored with. And you guys were just laying out everything that happened just this week. And this is supposed to be the off season, so to speak. And with the NFL, there is no off season between the end of the year and then obviously free agency and the draft and the OTAs. And then you have all these other stories that pop up and come to life. So find something you're passionate about. Find something that you're not going to find yourself kind of dragging through and saying, "Oh, I got to go do this. I got to get through that. I grew up a huge like pro wrestling fan, so I always thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool to cover that too. But I found something that I'm really genuinely passionate about in the NFL and in this, great sport, and obviously with the Bills itself. So find something you're passionate about first and foremost. Look for angles that maybe aren't being covered. Obviously, there's the newsers that have to go out when something happens. When it was announced today that Josh Allen was the cover man for Madden 24, just about every Buffalo site under the moon had that generic, headline out there. You have to do things like that, but look for different angles. Look for the social media reactions. Look for something that you think might take off. It's a completely different ball game out there though in 2023 in terms of writing the articles, podcasting, the videos, and everything else. So that's the other thing too, is it's exciting because things are always changing in the media.
Right.
Awesome. We talked about you talking about football. You're on a podcast with Matt Perino, Shout Buffalo Football Podcast. I think one of the coolest things about your guys' podcast is that you do live shows across Western New York, like Wingnuts. I know you do pretty often. So tell me a little bit about how Shout came together, and as well as how this regular collaboration with Wingnuts started.
Yeah, so I was over at Syracuse.com and NYUp.com. I think it was August of 2016 is when I was hired. So I had been there, and I was working at that time with Matthew Fairburn, who's now covering the Sabres for The Athletic. Great guy. But he eventually left to cover the Patriots beat. And when he left, they were interviewing a few different people, and they ended up hiring Matt Perino. And Matt came over from the UFC, and he had been at the UFC for about a decade. And when he was there every week, he would sit down with Dana White and interview him, and he would do a lot of videos with the different fighters. And that's one of the first things he told me is he goes, listen, I don't know what, if what's in your comfort zone, what's not, but podcasts and these videos are kind of, these are going to take off sooner rather than later. And, he was ahead of the game. He was ahead of the curve. And I still remember us kind of bouncing names back and forth, trying to come up with the title of Shout and finally settling on that. So what's nice is we've built a true friendship. He's one of my best friends. We get along great. We like, it's great when we get to travel together to these away games and when we're sitting in the press box together for the home games. So it's just kind of a natural friendship kind of running off of one another. But, Shout was definitely Matt's baby. And then in terms of Wingnuts, it's kind of like anything else where we've had tops in season the last few years. We've had value in season. In the off season, Wingnuts, Matt knew one of the co-owners, and they kind of reached out to Matt about, hey, why don't you come in and do a live show, like one live show? And we built a really good rapport with them, and then they wanted to kind of, make it official. And we kind of worked through that, and now they're the official chicken wing of Shout. So we go out there once a month, do a live show, great atmosphere, great setting. And, I love doing the live shows because one, great wings, great beer, great times, but two, you're getting Bills fans from all over the country. It was surreal. The last time we were there, I was waiting for Matt. He brings in a lot of the speakers and things like that. And the first two people that introduced themselves to me were from South Carolina. And they both were like, well, my daughter's at Canisius. I'm getting her out of college this week. And I was listening to the pod on the drive down, found out you guys were going to be here. So I wanted to come in and, similar story, not getting their kid out of college, but driving down to visit family, listening to the pod. They wanted to come in. So New Hampshire, South Carolina, obviously Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. We're getting Bills fans from all over Western New York. It's just awesome to see the support that we're getting at these live shows.
Yeah, and Wingnuts is such an awesome atmosphere. I've been like one or two times already, and yeah, like walking in there, I was like kind of caught off guard. It's just like it gives you that that brewery kind of like pub feel, but then you sit down and then you just order on your phone and then you just bring out the wings to you. It's kind of it's kind of like not like your traditional like restaurant in a sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this like hybrid. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. Cuts out the middleman. You're ordering through your phone, and like you said, then all of a sudden the wings are right there in front of you.
Yeah, and those wings are delicious.
Good beer, good wings, good times, just like you said.
Yeah,
that's right.
So let's talk a little bit about the new stadium. On Monday they had the official groundbreaking. They had Roger Goodell. They had Mayor Kathy Hochul, and I don't know if you can answer this question for me or not, but I'm very curious. Based on like fan interaction, or like a personal opinion, the new stadium is going to be open. Do you believe that the Bills should have went with a retractable roof route, or do you think this new stadium proposal right now is the best case scenario for the team?
Yeah, I was definitely team retractable roof. I just kind of feel like in Buffalo, yes, some weeks the weather can work to your advantage. Other weeks it can be just as much of a deterrent to you and your team as well. So, I don't think that the Bills look good in that playoff game against the Bengals, and
Mm-hmm.
that was supposed to be an advantageous matchup for the Bills because of the weather conditions. I know Cincinnati has similar weather at times. Mind you, it's not like it's a West Coast team that was coming in here, but the Bills looked at, didn't look like that this rough team, this tough team. They look more like a finesse team, and that's okay when you have Josh Allen, a guy that can throw it for 4,000 or 5,000 yards all over the field. They're not built for that ground and pound, and a lot of teams aren't anymore. This isn't the 1990s or 1980s, but I do think that the Bills went out this offseason and said, man, if we do get into the postseason, if we do get the 1 seed and we host some of these games, we do have to be able to kind of play a tough physical game. So enter Damian Harris, enter Latavius Murray, Osiris Torrance, this mauler of a guard that you end up landing in round 2. Obviously, you still want to add the pass catchers like they did with Dalton Kincaid, and they added some others in free agency. So Deontay Hart, I'm a huge fan of his game. I am excited to see what he can do in this offense, but they're at least realizing, okay, we do need to be a little bit more physical because I feel like the last few years they've been a lot more finesse than physical. And in 2026, who knows what this team is going to look like? Obviously, I still expect Josh Allen to be there and in his prime, but you just never know on a year-to-year basis. You don't want to build a retractable roof or a dome based on a team that you currently have right now. But at the same time, it's Buffalo. You have a dome that becomes a year-round event center. You can have concerts there. You can do a lot of things. I do like the design. I like that it's based on the field that they're going to be playing at in London, where I think it's about 70-80% of the crowd will stay dry in these element type of games now because of the way that it's structured. But you'll still get the snow on the field. You'll still get the rain. You'll still get those elements. I'm personally, though, was a fan of a retractable roof because I think that could have worked to Buffalo's advantage at times.
Right, and I was in the stands for that game, and it was just
for the Cincinnati game.
Yeah, for the Cincinnati game, and that was my first ever playoff game being in Buffalo, and it was just a rough time, to be honest. I was so excited, and then the whole weather situation, and that was heavy snow. It was heavy snow. I don't know if you were there or not, Ryan, but yeah, it was some heavy snow, and I do agree with the point of they needed to get tougher on I think both sides of the ball. I mean, they went out and they got a guy like Poona Ford, who I think is going to be big for them, like a heavy rotation with Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver. And we're going to talk about Ed Oliver in a second. But then you're going to be getting Von Miller back from injury. And then on offensive line, you have Osiris Torrance. Like, that was such a big pick. Like, that was
literally
that was a pick where at 20 our first round pick, we would have got him. I would have been like, okay, that's fine. But then we got him in the second round, and so that was definitely a steal. So speaking of Ed Oliver, recently extended, a little bit of controversy between fans and whatnot, especially on Twitter. And then they went out and they also got Leonard Floyd, which was a very incentive-laden deal. But the talent is there. He's at 29 sacks the last 3 years. So definitely two big moves to lock up the defensive line. Were you actually one of the first people we saw? You're actually one of the first people that we saw with the Leonard Floyd signing, to be honest, when the news broke out.
Yeah, you were calling that pretty early. I saw a lot of reporters giving you credit on that.
Yeah, you hear whispers at times and things, and it's nothing that you can confirm sometimes, but you hear of mutual interest. You hear that you kind of connect the dots, so to speak. So you definitely kind of float the name out there. Hey, this guy's still on the market. It wasn't as official as the reporting that I did on Poona Ford, Brandon Shell, reporting on that. But at the same time, yeah, you hear the name and you think it makes a lot of sense from the team perspective, from the player perspective. The player's going to get a good contract. He's going to be on a Super Bowl contender. So I do like, though, like you guys said, how physical they're getting. Sean McDermott loves being able to rotate his defensive line. So even if Von Miller's not ready out there week one, which, Miller keeps saying he thinks he'll be ready, time will tell on that. You now have Leonard Floyd. You have Greg Rousseau, who's coming off of an 8-sack season. Probably, I think it's fair to think he could have had double digits had he not suffered an injury in season. Miller was on pace, obviously, for double-digit sacks. Epinesa quietly had 6.5 sacks this past season. Lawson had a handful here and there, more of a stout run stopper, but they have that deep rotation. There's still Boogie Basham, Kingsley Jonathan, and the list kind of goes on and on. So I'm intrigued to see how it all works out there. And then defensive tackle, too. I mean, they're 5 deep there at least.
Yeah. And now, you throw a guy on like Leonard Floyd. I mean, how much of an impact do you think he'll have right away from week one?
Yeah, it's funny when the Floyd signing happened, there were some people that were skeptical, saying, "Well, why was he still out there on the market? He didn't really produce until he had Aaron Donald and Von Miller with him with the Rams, because he was kind of quiet in his tenure with the Chicago Bears. But there were times where Donald wasn't playing in a game or Von Miller wasn't playing a game, and he was still a big time difference maker for the Rams. It just sometimes takes these players a few extra years to kind of connect everything, get everything together. You guys mentioned it, 29 sacks over the last 3 years. That's top 10 in the league. I think 157 total pressure. So even if he's not sacking the quarterback, he's forcing the ball to get out a little bit earlier than he wants. Hurries are there. The hits are there, making them move off of there where they want to stand in the pocket. All things like that are little disruptions that can lead to turnovers and interceptions. And then obviously, you want him to be able to be out there on the field as many snaps as possible. He's actually decent against the run, too, for being a little bit undersized for the position. So value, I think, was there and off the charts in terms of that Floyd signing for the Bills.
Awesome. And like Mike alluded to, the Ed Oliver extension was one, I guess a lot of fans took that one by surprise. To me, it made sense. I really liked that signing. I liked that gamble. They kind of looked at Jermaine Edmonds from last year and was like, okay, maybe if we had that extension last year, he'd still be on the team and we'd be looking at a completely different defense. But I feel like they might have, I don't know if learned is the right way to say it, but they might have saw that and was like, hey, we're willing to take a gamble on Ed Oliver and sign him a little bit earlier, and instead of letting him play out his contract year. And now that being said, with Sean McDermott taking over play calling and his history of being more of an aggressive play caller during his time at Carolina, do you think his potential defensive shift plays more to Ed Oliver's strength, and could we see a career year out of him in year 5?
Yeah, I do think it plays to his strengths. And obviously Ed Oliver's a defensive tackle, but there were times early in his career here in Buffalo where they played him out on the edge and they let him have those matchups against some tackles, and he's had some sacks. There's one against the Jets a few years ago where he shifted to the outside, and I could see them, using all that personnel that they have and having DeQuan Jones and Puna Ford in the middle, letting Ed Oliver play on the outside every now and then, get a few reps there. I think that if you're bringing extra pressure from elsewhere, you're not going to be able to double team at Oliver as much as he has been over the past few years. And, I like the word that you guys said. You said it's a gamble. It's a gamble on both sides, because the Bills said, okay, we could lose this guy or we can pay him. It's top 16 money at the position. So it's not like he's top 3, top 5 at defensive tackle. He's in the top half of the league. So from the Bills, yes, you are paying him a significant pay raise. But without that pay raise and lowering his cap hit this season, maybe you don't sign Leonard Floyd, because that's where a lot of that money came from. Oliver was playing with an ankle injury last year. He alluded to that at his press conference with the media, saying, he knew that when he was able to play through that injury and still have his presence felt at times, he knew that he was, meant to be able to be successful in this league no matter what. So I think a healthy Ed Oliver, first of all, is going to be key. He looked really good when healthy next to DeQuan Jones. Jones coming back will obviously be really good for him this upcoming season. But you guys mentioned there's the Puna Fords of the world now. You have all these young pass rushers in Rousseau, Epinesa, and then the veterans like Floyd and Von Miller. If they can kind of generate their own pressure, and then you can still get a little bit wild with how you line players up, even in the back end. Now that you have Taylor Rapp there, you might see some different looks there with 3 safety looks, and one of them could be going after the quarterback, one could be dropping deep. I'm excited to see this defense and how exotic they get at times. based on matchups.
Right. And another defensive signing that they had this morning, they got cornerback Cam Dantzler. What kind of impact do you think he'll have with OTAs already upon us? Was this more of a depth signing, or can Dantzler make a push for that cornerback number 2 spot?
Yeah, right now I'll say more of a depth signing, and very interesting career. He comes in as a rookie and makes the PFWA All Rookie team. Started 10 games as a rookie, appeared in 11. I think he had 2 interceptions that year. But over his last 7 starts, quarterbacks were only had like a 47% completion percentage against him. Really low number. He was really limiting players. But injuries kind of forced the Vikings to sign a Rashad Breeland, and they gave the starting job to him in year 2, and that upset Dantzler, and he didn't get along with Mike Zimmer, and a lot of guys didn't get along with Mike Zimmer. So that kind of was in the doghouse year 2. New coaching regime last year. Again, didn't start 9 games, maybe 8 games, somewhere around that. So it's odd from where his career started and all the ability that he displayed to where he is now. I still think that the Bills obviously have Trey White pegged as their cornerback 1. No shock there. They just spent a first-round pick last year on Kyer Elam. I know they said there were things in practice that kind of limited his reps as a rookie, but when he was on the field, I thought he looked really good. He looked the part.
Yeah.
Maybe they were worried about him giving up the double moves for the big gains, and that was definitely something that McDermott, Frazier, whoever you want to kind of pinpoint that at, that's one thing they didn't want to do, is give up those huge chunk plays. And it's why they went with the Dane Jackson, who, Dane's going to give up a lot of catches, but he's not going to let the guys get by him. So they have guys like that still. Obviously, Christian Benford, who played zone. I'm not even saying Alex Austin couldn't come in here, a 7th-round pick, or the Buffalo's last pick this year. He played in a zone-heavy defense. It was a multi-defense, but played a lot of zone. So they have a lot of guys. So Dantzler just can't come in here and assume he's going to be in competition for that cornerback, too. Obviously, Taron Johnson in the slot as well. I think that he could compete for corner 4, corner 5, try to push a Saran Neal off of this roster, or another veteran that's kind of hanging on to that last final spot.
Hey, Cam Dantzler is your cornerback 4 or 5 is a good situation to be in for a secondary for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
I do want to talk about, and we don't want to keep you here forever, but the last thing is Josh Allen, cover of Madden 24. This is the first time a Bills player has been on the cover, and also the first time that fans have been prominent on the cover, which was on the deluxe version of the game. I think coming off of such a draining and taxing year for the city of Buffalo, this is such a cool moment to have them in the spotlight. What are your thoughts on Josh Allen being Madden's new cover athlete?
In terms of being a superstar, and you want to get a superstar, and that's what Josh Allen is. So it makes a lot of sense for him to be that cover man. And just pure speculation on my part, and maybe we'll get an answer to that this week. Allen's going to do a media appearance about this here tomorrow. In my opinion, he was probably set to be the Madden 2023 cover athlete. And then obviously John Madden passed, and they wanted to honor the namesake of the game, and rightfully so. So the people in Madden probably said, okay, as long as Allen looks the same as he did this past year, still putting up those gaudy numbers, he's going to be our cover athlete. And I think it was a great choice by EA Sports, because I kind of asked fans today on social media after it was announced, said, okay, how many of you are going to go out and actually buy a physical copy of this game? Because even nowadays, when you buy games, it's usually digitally. So that way you're not having to worry about putting a disc in or having it get scratched up. And I had probably hundreds of fans respond to that, many of whom say, I don't even have a gaming system. I'm going to get the game just so I can have it as a memento on my mantle or in my Bill's cave and things like that. I might buy 1 copy of each, the standard and the deluxe edition. So they're ready to go out and shell out probably $150 or more just to get a picture of Josh Allen on a video game cover.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being one of their highest selling games in many years, if not the highest selling. And if I'm mad and I'm sitting out there and saying, okay, I'm also going to make posters of this. I'm going to do as much as I can, because the one thing about the Bills Mafia is they eat this stuff up, and they want to get as much memorabilia, as many mementos as possible. So it was a smart choice by them. And listen, Josh Allen deserves this. He's been in the MVP conversation the past few years. He's a top 2, top 3 quarterback in this league. well deserving of that honor.
I really like what you said about that theory where with John Madden's passing, he was set to be the cover athlete last year, but they wanted to pay homage to Madden. Looking at the stats, coming off the 2020 year and then into 2021, I mean, I think that was his career year thus far.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think that would make a lot of sense. What you said, never even thought of it like that. But I think we got one last question.
I have one last question.
We got to ask every guest.
Yeah, so every guest that's from Buffalo, we always love asking this question because it's a Buffalo question. You know what I'm talking about. We mentioned chicken wings earlier. Would you be able to give us your favorite or top 3 favorite wings in Buffalo, Western New York?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not just saying this because they're the official wing of Shout. Wingnut as number 1 right now. A ton of great flavors. If you've been there, it sounds weird to recommend getting the mild. The mild is not a typical mild. It has a kick to it. It has a unique flavor to it. My wife loves the honey garlic flavor. My son loves the barbecue. They all have a nice kick to them, a nice little bit of flavor. It's different than any other kind of wing in Western New York in a good way. Number 2 has to be Bar Bill for me. I love Bar Bill. You can't go wrong with their wings or their beef on weck if you go there and check out those locations. And then number 3, I did sit here for a while and think of it. Probably Gabriel's Gate. That's high on my list. But I could go Elmo's. I could go with a lot of different places. That's the great thing about Buffalo. It could be one of those highly publicized sites, or you could just go to a corner bar and end up getting phenomenal wings. It really is a staple in Western New York, and very seldom will you go somewhere there and get bad wings.
Yeah, I completely agree. Gabriel's Gate and Elmo's are fighting for that number 3 spot for me. It's like I had Gabriel's Gate first, and I was like, wow, these are amazing. And then I found out about Elmo's because they're right around the block from UB. So I went after school one day, and I was like, wow, these are also really good. I'd probably agree. That's probably my top 3 as well.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Same exact top 3, actually.
But I think that's all we have today, Ryan. Thank you again for coming on. We really appreciate it. Hopefully, hopefully our Bills have a very big year. I don't want to be too cryptic, but I don't want to jinx us or anything like that. But hopefully we bring home that Lombardi this year.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. I had a great time in season. I would love to come on again. So feel free to reach out whenever.
Definitely.
Sure.
Thanks so much, Ryan. We appreciate that.
Thank you.